Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. It's so great to see everybody chatting with each other. Okay. So I have the pleasure to be joined by many of my fabulous colleagues and our wonderful upper class students here to talk a little bit more about the first year experience and also what the next 4 years will look like in terms of academics, advising, student life, and residence life, and sort of the student experience across the board. You've already heard from me enough today, so I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. Then I promise I will speak only briefly about just the first year experience, and then pass it down the line for everybody to talk a little more.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Purton. I'm Assistant Dean and also List College alum 2002.
Hi everyone, I'm Orlia Miller. I'm also one of the List College Deans, and I came here for Davidson, so I'm a Davidson alum of 2019.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Horowitz. I'm the Dean of Student Life, and I have the honor of overseeing extracurricular programming here at JTS.
Hi everyone, I'm Aryeh Bright. I'm a senior from Los Angeles studying financial economics and Jewish ethics, and I'm an RA in the residence hall.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma. I am a junior from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm studying neuroscience and behavior and modern Jewish studies, and I'm the current president of List College Student Council.
Fabulous. So to kick us off, I'm going to talk a little bit about what academics look like for first-year students, and then my colleagues in the Dean's Office are going to talk a little bit more about the academics more broadly across the 4 years, as well as specific opportunities for List College students as they look ahead to what the 4 years will look like. So all students in their first year, as you know, are duly enrolled on both campuses, taking courses both here at JTS, but also over at Columbia and Barnard each semester. In the fall, there are 2 foundational courses that students will take that are specific to the first year cohort that the students will take together. So this is the only time that the cohort is all together in class at once. So the first course is the Foundations of the Jewish Canon or Great Books Survey. So this is a foundational course that is their introduction to academics at JTS. So it is designed to give students an introduction to the shared language, the shared experience, the shared canon that we expect all List College students to have access to. And it continues from the fall through the spring, and it basically starts with the Bible and works your way through modern Jewish thinkers. So the first semester roughly covers biblical through medieval, and then picks up in the early modern period in the spring through present day. The course is taught in 2 sections by some of our full-time faculty members on campus across various fields. So typically in the fall, they'll be introduced to our full-time faculty in the Bible and Talmud department. And then in the spring, folks in our Jewish history, Jewish thought, Jewish ethics departments. And that course will comprise the foundation of their academic experience introduction to JTS. In addition, in the fall, all students will take List 101, which is an extended orientation course. So it is co-facilitated by the List College Dean's Office. So Dean Purton, Dean Miller, and myself all teach that course. So we meet weekly on Thursday afternoons. We offer lunch for the students, so it's great that you know that your students are eating every Thursday afternoon. And so it is a great way for the group, the cohort, to get together weekly, to have community building time. So a lot of what we do is build a strong foundation for the cohort, help them get to know each other so that they have those ties moving forward when they're no longer in every class together. And it's also a great way for us to continue to introduce them to resources across both campuses beyond the orientation program. So Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about orientation, but we know that that time is stressful for students. We pack a lot into that week. And so there are things that will stick and there are things that won't. So those things that we want students to continue to have access to continue to take advantage of, that we know may not have stuck, we're going to build that into the List 101 curriculum and bring in guest speakers and introduce them to those resources down the line. In addition to those two courses, all students will also take a Hebrew course in the fall semester. So over the summer, when they get access to their enrolled student portal, they'll take a Hebrew placement exam. This exam will place them into the appropriate level of Hebrew right off the bat. So whether that is starting with our Foundations of Hebrew course in the fall, or whether that's they've been in day school for 12 years and they're advanced Hebrew and they're exempt from the traditional Hebrew sequence, all students take at least one Hebrew course on campus. So even a student who is exempt is still taking an advanced either Hebrew language or Hebrew literature course in that first semester to complete and work towards the Hebrew requirement on campus. So that comprises the courses that are required on the JTS side for first years. On the Columbia or Barnard side, throughout their first year, students will complete a first year writing or university writing course, depending on the program. First year writing is Barnard, university writing Columbia. And then all Barnard students will also complete a first year seminar. So on the Barnard side, they'll have 2 courses, 1 each semester. And then on the Columbia side, that university writing course is the only course that is GS specific. So Dean Rosenmatch was talking about having access to all of the courses across Columbia University's campus. What's great about university writing is that it gives students a chance to get to know the GS community, that smaller community they're a part of there. And it also helps introduce students to the resources that are specific to the GS community, like the Academic Resource Center over at Columbia. So that is a course that students will take in either their fall or spring, and then at Barnard, they'll take one of the courses in the fall, one of the courses in the spring, seminar and writing. I'll turn it over to Dean Purdon to talk a little bit more about academics more broadly.
Sure. So Dean Miller and I pick up where Dean Maybloom leaves off, and we serve as your students' advisors from their sophomore year through their senior year. There is, the students offer a lot of help, and we have very regular advising appointments during registration period. So they're guided in sessions where we talk about what they need to look for in terms of class selection, what they should make sure is appearing on their registration for that particular semester. I can give you a little overview in terms of the number of credits that they'll be tackling. I don't need to tell you, it's a very rigorous program, very ambitious. All of them are ready for it. We just help them make their way through each semester. We have a core curriculum which is intended to not only secure a Hebrew knowledge and to also confirm that they have a sense of the foundations of our great academic history. But in addition, we cover Bible, Talmud, and then there's some electives as well to make sure that they have, let's say, a taste of everything, so that they have that well-rounded basis. That represents 37 credits. Again, this may not really mean much to you at this point, but it's 37 credits, and all of these are counting towards a total that's required for graduation. The Jewish liberal arts electives, again, these are included in the core so that students can try a course in history, a literature, and also a thought. So again, to have a little taste of the kinds of things that they might want to pursue in a more, to deepen their interest via a major. Our major is 30 credits, 24 of which are non-duplicative, so they're courses that they find with the guidance of a major advisor. We work closely with a major advisor as well to make sure that the students know whom to talk to, the kind of questions they should ask. We encourage them early on to have conversations with these faculty members so they can make a connection, but also the major advisor really helps them point out courses that maybe not only would be of interest, but certainly are required. So that represents 8 courses out of 10 that are the major. And based largely on the amount of Hebrew that your student comes in, there's a group of electives, 21 credits, which some come from pre-college credits, such as IB or AP, transfer credit from another institution, such as study abroad options. Sometimes that brings in some credit towards that bucket, let's say. And finally, there is often an excess of credits that are earned at Columbia or Barnard, which we scoop in the total math sentence that will equal having earned enough credits to graduate from List College and Columbia or List College and Barnard. As I said, we have very regular advising appointments and of course are always available to students outside of that for conversations, for example, about how the semester is going, particular courses, interest in study abroad, and as Dean Miller will speak about shortly, about other opportunities beyond the classroom. We speak very regularly, as we should, with our colleagues over Columbia and Barnard. We have a very close relationship. We track the credits that they're earning there so that we can make sure no one slips through the cracks. As the students have said, we're very, it's a lot of personalized attention that you can get in a small school like this. I know it of myself, that small town, big city worked for me, let's say. And that's really the advantage of our small size, is that we have eyes on them in the best way through each semester, the trajectory of their year. And we really have a team between Dean Kalmanovsky, Dean Maybloom, and Dean Miller and myself. We meet regularly again to focus on areas of interest and concern in our student body. And they still have interactions with Dean Maybloom beyond their first year. And of course, we enjoy spending time with them in their List 101 experience. And I would also want to say, looking forward, that I am part of the seniors. I mean, this is like ages in the future for you maybe, but when they come to their senior year, they have something that's unique to List College, which is sort of a bookend to their List 101 experience. They return as a cohort together, and we spend the spring semester of their senior year processing what just happened, and also taking an important time not only to reflect, but to look forward and to help them think about what happens the day after you take off your cap and gown, and here you are in a world. How do you navigate a secular workplace when the second day of Rosh Hashanah is on a Tuesday? All things like this. How do you find your community? I introduce them to initiatives that are specifically focused on the 20s and 30s, where it can be really difficult without the structure that we provide in a major way of community, of ritual happenings, Shabbat, etc., or not Shabbat, whatever it is. Those things are in place here, obviously, to support your students. And we also think very intentionally about what happens once they are alumni on May 19th, for example, this year. So maybe that's a little bit of a good segue to other opportunities beyond the classroom. And of course, we're happy to talk about classroom-specific things later. But Dean Miller, why don't you short the lesson?
Yeah, definitely a good segue. So as my colleagues have said, we all are working with your students throughout their 4 years. I'm just going to speak very specifically about two fellowships, one that we've had for a long time for our seniors, and another that we're starting up very soon for juniors and seniors. We are all part of that advising process, so we all wear a lot of different hats and are excited to get to know them. We luckily, because of the List 101 course, get to know them pretty well in their first year, so that after Dean Maybloom has them in advising for their first year, as they get assigned to either myself or Dean Purton, we know them because we were with them in List 101 and have a relationship with them, so they're not walking into a stranger's office when they are doing advising their sophomore through senior year. One of the fellowships we've had, I think it's in its 11th or 12th year, is called FJSE, the Fellowship in Jewish Social Entrepreneurship, which is a mouthful. The goal of that fellowship is so in somebody's junior year, a lot of seniors are looking for how they're spending their senior year. They might have some time available that they were taking an intense load of courses earlier on, but now they have some more time on their hands, or they're looking for a job that's not work study. They earn a stipend for doing this, but they apply with the goal of being involved in social change in a particular organization. Some of them work in Jewish organizations and some in the secular world, but the goal is that they're learning tools for making change in an entrepreneurial way. So folks work at places like the Jewish Museum. We have someone working at Harlem Grown, which is a community-based farm in this area. This year we also have somebody at the Jewish Federation of North America who's specifically working on trips in Israel and that initiative. His boss is in California. She's a one-woman show as part of JFNA, but she was so eager for this intern this year, and luckily the student was interested in that work. We have somebody else this year at SFARA, which is an organization focused on making Jewish texts more accessible to LGBTQ people across the country and making it so that these texts that we've studied so traditionally like have access points to more people. Junior year, we're currently in the middle of interviewing fellows for next year. They apply and share what their interests are. I have a conversation with them about why they're excited about the type of work that they might be, and we figure out an organization they might be interested in going to work for that either another fellow has worked for or maybe something that I've never heard of that they, that's the cause they're passionate about. And during their senior year, they're paid a stipend of $2,500 each semester to do 10 to 12 hours of work per week at that site. So some of them do it in 2 days, some of them do a couple of hours each day if it's maybe a remote internship. And then at the same time, we have a weekly seminar where they're coming in. Some of the weeks we're reflecting on their internship, going through what it's like to be in the workplace for the first time and challenges they're noticing. And some weeks we have guest speakers who are thinkers, leaders in the world of Jewish social change that are coming in to speak with this small group of students. The fellowship this year, we have 3 students. Next year, we're in the probably 6 to 10 range, so it just depends on what year and who's excited about it. And then the second fellowship I'll share about is called LEAP, the List Education and Professional Leadership Fellowship, which will be launching soon. This is the one that is brand new. So in a student's sophomore year, it's designed so that they can gain the tools of being a Jewish educator, and they're in classes here with some students who are in rabbinical school in the education program. They're already learning alongside a lot of those people, and so this fellowship is designed so they can receive training through work experience in their junior year, the summer between their junior and senior year, and their senior year, both through taking classes with our Davidson School, our education master's program, and also they're in 3 work rotations, so the first in a religious school, the second in a summer camp, and the third in a day school. And again, this is further away like the other fellowship, but just to share with you a little bit about the ways that we help our students gain real professional skills while they're here so that they're prepared to enter the real world and the workforce when they graduate. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'll pass it along to Sarah, who will share a little bit more about student life outside of the classroom.
Thank you. Hello again. I want to take just a moment to pause and to wish you all a mazal tov on this momentous occasion in your life as you are on this college selection journey. For some of you, this might be your first student that you're sending off to college, and for some of you've been through this before, but you are in great company of wonderful people, and we have you also. We're here to support you, so just know that. Just to give you a sense of student life, really the role of our office is twofold. One is we're a friendly ear to students, where we love to talk to students and get to know them and find out what's going on in their hearts and minds and answer questions or help find the answer to questions. When I was listening to the panel in the back before, I just had this moment of, this is why I love working here every day, because of these incredible students that we have. And the second piece is to offer programming and opportunities to build community, to learn outside of the classroom, and to explore Jewish life and Jewish identities. We also, in addition to student life, we have a counseling center that is available to support all students whenever they need, and their motto is no problem or no issue is too small or too big, so that we really encourage students to get the support that they need whenever they need it. So in terms of programming, we do a variety of programs specifically for List College and also for the greater JTS community, including our graduate level programs. And that begins in the beginning of the year, where we have a lot of holiday programs. We actually have opportunities for students to have high holiday meals together if they're not going home. Sukkot, we have at least 2 Sukkot, maybe 3 now on our campus at different points, and opportunities to have meals together and sing together. And we really do the holidays like throughout the year. That kind of carries us through the calendar in a beautiful way. In addition, we have many student leaders are very involved in creating and implementing programming. So you will hear shortly from our fabulous List College Student Council leaders, but they are really the heart in many ways of List College in terms of finding creative things that students want to do and listening to them and implementing, their ideas and activities. And Student Life is really, we partner with them because we want to make sure that they succeed in their programs, work smoothly and happen, and that they learn and grow as well. Just to give you a little sampling, this week we are embarking on a week of Israel at 75, so we'll be having programs on Yom HaZikaron as well as programs celebrating Israel at 75 on Wednesday, and we really do mark, special significant occasions in the Jewish calendar together. In terms of NSAP, the new student orientation program, that begins this year. I believe it's Sunday, August 27th. It's the Sunday preceding Labor Day weekend. And the goal of that week really is to ease the transition of the students' previous experience into the JTS, Columbia and Barnard, and New York City community. We do have some time for the parents, for the family members that day as well. And it's really, it is an intense week, but it's a lot of food, a lot of opportunity for socializing, and also learning about how JTS works, how Columbia and Barnard works from the academic side to all the student supports that are available, as well as learning a little bit how to navigate New York. In fact, there's a fabulous session led by a student on how to navigate the New York City subway system. And I actually wanted to take that myself because I've been here for 30 years, but I have a lot to learn myself. So that's really the goal, and we work closely with Columbia and Barnard to put together a schedule that is hopefully not too overwhelming, that really complements each other. And our student leaders really are here for the students. We have student orientation chairs, and we have student orientation advisors who are here throughout the week guiding the students, so they're not alone, and they always have people to ask questions. So that's orientation. And there really are a lot of different opportunities to get involved. I mentioned List College Student Council before. There are a lot of leadership positions on campus, whether it's in resident advisors and admissions and just planning activities. And we have an artist in residence program with renowned artist Toby Kahn, where students they don't have to be they don't have to feel like they're the best artist in any way. Beginners are welcome, and it's just an opportunity to connect with other artists, in addition to all the activities at Columbia and Barnard. This area is called Morningside Heights, and I actually love that the student in the panel before called this a town and a city. I've always felt that this area is a college town within a city, and it's beautiful just to walk around the area and see how many campuses there are, and see how many people who live in the community who've lived here all their lives as well. We have a security team that's here 24/7, both at JTS and at the residence hall, and as well as each of the academic institutions have their own security team, and there's also different security kind of roaming the area, and it's not unusual to see that. During orientation, we do have sessions on, kind of navigating, safety in New York with that kind of lens, especially because people are new to living in the city. There are certain things to kind of help pick up on to help you stay as safe as possible. Along with safety, as well, as we all know, unfortunately, there has been an increase in anti-Semitism around the country, around the world. One of the things I feel that our students really, really benefit from is being immersed at Columbia and Barnard in their very active and supportive Hillel, and coming home at night, or whether you're going home to Barnard at night, and being in a small-knit Jewish living experience where you can have an opportunity to talk amongst each other and also help, make change for the better, and many of our students are involved in that. So that's something that we're proud of. And I think that is it for my portion at the moment. I'm looking down my list to make sure I didn't forget anything, but really the people that can really speak most wonderfully is our fabulous students. So.
Okay, great. I'm going to talk a little bit about leadership, specifically with a focus on List College Student Council. So like I said, I'm currently List College Student Council's president. I got into leadership, if anyone's familiar with United Synagogue Youth. I was a very active leader in high school. I didn't really do a lot of student government, but when I started during the pandemic, the first club that really reached out to me was List College Student Council, and I ran to be their first year rep. So I served as first year rep. I also served as vice president of policy, who works on the academic side, working with all of the deans here about academic policy and residence hall policy. So it has been a great journey, and now I'm serving as president. List College Student Council is the sole governing body of List College. We're 9 members. 4 are also grade reps, so we have a representative of each grade, and we also have a double degree rep, so the Barnard students are represented equally. We work very closely with GCSC, which is the GS Student Council, and some programming that we do, just to give you guys a sense. Every grade rep will run programming for their grade. The double degree rep will also run programming for the double degrees. We do Jewish Identity Forums for You, where we actually invite faculty in to share a meal with us over dinner and kind of talk about their Jewish story and what brought them to JTS. We have List College Formal, which Aryeh is vice president of finance, so he helped me plan that this year, where I like to describe it as like a bar mitzvah that we throw for ourselves. It's really fun. It's a great way to celebrate being part of this community. We also have List College Shabbat dinners once a month, so it's a way for List College to kind of unite all together. We're also very active at Hillel and Chabad, so we get Shabbat experiences there. I'm trying to think if I'm missing any types of programming, but List College Student Council meets weekly. We hear from the students about any concerns that they have, and we share that with the administration, so we're really a direct link with student life and with our deans. And yeah, I think that's kind of an overview of what List College Student Council does. I'm also involved in leadership across campus, so happy to talk about that as well. But I like to describe our students as we're the heads of every club on campus. So if there's a club that you don't think a List College student is a part of, they're probably a part of it. And there are no barriers to entry of any club. We have access to clubs across all of Columbia, Barnard, and then obviously here. So yeah, List College students are very strong leaders in the community. And now I'll turn it to Aryeh. He'll start talking about residence life. I also live in the dorm, so we'll kind of chat about that.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, so I think it's important to just start off when talking about residence life that this building is pretty much brand new. Like when I started here 4 years ago, it wasn't done yet. So all the facilities, everything is new, it's up to date. There's AC in the building, centralized AC, which I learned coming to New York City is not granted, something that is taken to take for granted. Again, all the facilities in the building are new, which is really, really wonderful. It is truly one of the best places to live anywhere in the Morningside Heights area. The building itself, students live across 4 different residence life floors. Every floor is equipped with a really large common space. Like, again, I visited some of my friends who live in Columbia dorms or Barnard dorms. Their lounges are like kind of tiny, normally empty. Our lounges and common spaces are like the heart of student life. Students are in there having events, just watching TV together, or even just studying together. And it's nice to have access to that in your home. And it really makes it feel like a home as opposed to like a dorm where you're living with strangers and don't really know anyone. Every single floor has laundry on it, which again is like such a big deal that you don't even have to go to the basement of your own building or walk across campus. You can just turn a corner and there's a laundry room on your floor. What else? The kitchens alternate between Heckscher kosher, which means there's a kosher certification on every single item that enters that kitchen, or ingredient kosher, which means as long as every individual ingredient in an item is kosher, it's allowed in the kitchen. So there's different levels of kashrut for different people's observances, so everyone can hopefully find a place where they feel comfortable living and cooking in. And these kitchens are like enormous. At least for me, the largest kitchen I've ever cooked in, and the largest kitchen I've ever seen outside of like a restaurant. So like every kitchen has like 10 stovetops, 4 ovens, 2 dishwashers, a full set of like dairy dishes, parve dishes, and meat dishes. So they really are like at the center of List College communal living. On Fridays before Shabbat, the kitchens are normally full of people cooking for Shabbat lunches, potlucks that they're hosting together in the dorms, or on a day like today, out in Riverside Park. So people really like to take advantage of all the facilities that are wonderful residence halls that I realize you can't see, but are somewhere out there. have to offer. Underclassmen are typically living in doubles with a roommate in their room, whereas upperclassmen typically live in singles. And another really great part of the residence hall is that there's really a robust staff presence. I know at Columbia and Barnard, the ratio of like a resident advisor or an RA to residents is usually around 1 RA for 50 residents. Here it's around 15, like 1 RA for 15 to 20 people, so your RAs really get to know you. RAs are students like me who have lived in the dorms that are there to serve as a resource for your students, whether that be trying to facilitate community, or if they're having issues with their roommate or anything else, we're happy to sit down and talk to them and either help them out if it's in our capacity or direct them to someone who can. In addition to that, we also have Jewish life directors, which is something that's definitely unique to the Lisk College Residence Hall that you're not going to find maybe anywhere else in America, I don't know, but definitely not at Columbia or Barnard. The job of the JLDs is to help facilitate Jewish life on campus, which includes hosting Shabbat dinners for people, having Jewish programming around holidays, and also supporting the student body and like maintaining the kashrut status of the kitchen, koshering things when, like, you know, everyone, including myself, makes mistakes with kashrut. So if we have like bins where we put dishes that have been accidentally, you know, miskoshered, and they help us rekosher them. So there's a constant flow of dishes in the community, and they're just a great resource to have in your own home. And then on top of that, there's also a residence life director whose job is to like oversee the safety and of pretty much everyone that lives in the dorm and make sure that everyone is doing well, and if there are any issues to, you know, facilitate that. And it's nice to have like an adult presence in the building, and know that there's someone who lives in your same building that is really there and caring about your well-being. Yeah, Emma, anything to add?
I'll just add, I'm sorry, that's loud. If you have yet to see the residence hall, which hopefully you will be able to do on your campus tour, from a student perspective, when I have my friends from Columbia College or Barnard come see the dorm, the first reaction is like, whoa. This is very nice. We don't have a kitchen like this. We don't have lounges like this. So I can't emphasize that even the students are shocked. And it really is a great environment. It's also pluralistic living. So it's a word you might hear thrown around a lot here. But the residence hall is open to everyone in the spectrum of Lisk College religiously. And we are all sharing spaces together, even if we come from different Jewish practices. So it is a challenge at first. You have to learn everyone's background and everyone's preferences. But it really has been a great way to live, especially growing up just like in my own Jewish home, and the way I practice things is not the way everyone practices. So there has been a ton of learning just by living in this Jewish space. And you might have a Jewish roommate if you're in college, but you don't have like 18 other people that you live with all living Jewishly and differently. So like koshering the kitchens for Pesach, when we learned that every floor is going to have a different level of kashrut status, has been really enlightening for me and for all of my other peers. And yeah, it's been a great place to live. I'm not an RA, but I've picked to live at the dorms for my full 4 years that I'm here. So happy to talk about like what it looks like of also like living in the dorms versus living off campus.
I just wanted to add to that, that double degree students who may choose to live at Barnard, they are always more than welcome to come to the residence hall, and often do, and they come and hang out, and the lounges and the spaces are home to them as well, and they have access through their ID cards. In addition, the Jewish Life programming that Ario so eloquently described, that is for all of Lisk College, wherever they reside, and they really do make an effort to get to know all the students and make sure that everyone feels included. They send out a weekly announcement every week about cute little poems and a Hebrew word of the week, but also like, you know, Shabbat service times and like what are the buffet of options that people can do. And they really are intentional about understanding that people are coming from different backgrounds and exploring their Jewish identities, and that they may change over their time. Few times over the time here. So they really are a resource for them.
Just one thing to note about housing as we're sort of looking ahead to next steps. So over the summer, all enrolled students will gain access to their enrolled student portal where they'll fill out a bunch of forms and surveys and placement exams for Hebrew and other things. The housing form is one of those forms that students will fill out. All incoming students need to fill out the housing form, so this is true of both joint program and double degree students. Double degree students have their option of either living on campus at JTS or living over at Barnard. All first year students are required to live on campus in one of the two spaces. So on that form, double degrees will let us know which residence hall they plan to live in, and then joint program students and then double degrees who are living in our housing will then be prompted with your typical housing survey where it'll ask those regular questions. Are you a light sleeper? Do you prefer a party room or study center, all of those sort of fun things that we want to get to know about your student. But in addition to those on our form, as Emma and REA have sort of alluded to, we also ask questions related to Jewish life. So we will ask students if they typically do use electricity on Shabbat, do they care if their roommate uses electricity on Shabbat, and to elect which kitchen option they prefer in terms of kashrut level, whether that's hechsher kosher or ingredient kosher. And then students may also select a roommate. The important thing to note is that it does need to be a mutual request. You all laugh, you would be surprised. So make sure that if your student does want, I told this to the students before this as well, if they do plan to live with somebody, if they meet somebody today or they meet on Instagram, that they come to a consensus and both put each other down. We will not assign somebody a roommate if only one person has requested the other. It must be mutual. Otherwise, we will use that survey to help place students. Madison is part of those conversations, as she obviously knows your students very well by this point, so she is part of that placement process, and that's why we typically see a really great success rate with those first year roommates. And often we find that they're like, I feel like you picked the perfect roommate for me. How did you do that? And Madison's like, I know. So it's definitely something that we see every year. So that housing form is really important for students to fill out as soon as possible as we go into that process. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions for any of the panelists. I know that you've heard a lot of information already today, but happy to take any questions. Yes, please.
Is there any place for doing a semester abroad and staying within a 4-year timeline?
Yes. Sure, yes. We do have many students who choose study abroad. They choose it carefully in consultation with us based on largely, I would say largely their Hebrew and to what degree they need to fill those general electives. You need to get to a certain credit count. Depending where you go, there'll be a conversation about not only the content, it could be the content of the study that they're doing, how can we understand where it could be applied. There can be an application of transfer credit, which is really what study abroad represents, but to some degree also, beyond content, it might represent just credits that they need to go towards the end. I will say that generally students are studying in Israel. It's not surprising, but we do have students who study elsewhere, and if there's interest in going elsewhere, that's definitely a conversation that needs to be held well in advance. It's a junior year often that people are going, and we do have an in-house minimum for credits. 54 credits must be in-house, and depending on your background, what you're coming in with externally, we really want to be very careful that there's no surprises at the end or any glitches in accumulating credits, even though a study abroad experience is just incredibly important and an opportunity that you can take in these years. Dean Miller and I have definitely spent time speaking with students who are interested, helping them get to that point where they could actually do it. Columbia has a lot of resources for study abroad and a dedicated office. So they'll have our guidance, and if they are going through Columbia or Barnard, there's a lot of information about approved programs versus programs that could be supported in a different way. Do you have anything to add about study abroad?
So I'm just going to add to touch on the Columbia piece of it. Something that Dean Purdom was just saying. The big difference between the types of programs on the Columbia side, if a student doesn't want to go to Israel, is Columbia-led versus Columbia-sponsored programs. Columbia-sponsored serve as true transfer credits. So those are just institutions abroad that Columbia says, yeah, we'll take your credits. Very similar to how Columbia says, yes, we'll take your JTS credits. So they only have a small bucket of those that they can use over on the Columbia or Barnard side, and typically the JTS credits are sort of filling that already. So that's why those Columbia-sponsored programs do require a different type of planning, because it's not necessarily, they're filling requirements, but they're not getting anything towards the Columbia-Barnard in-house requirements that they need. Columbia-led programs are effectively Columbia credit abroad. So if they take a Columbia-led study abroad, it is the same thing as if they were in New York. So those programs are typically a little more popular for students who want to go non-Israel options, because they can then go wherever in the world through that program and take a full course load and know that that's still counting towards the 62, 64 in-house credit that Columbia or Barnard requires.
Sorry, I just want to add one thing just about the timeline, because I didn't know about this when I was going to college. I assumed studying abroad always meant a semester abroad, which doesn't have to be the case. One of my closest friends actually spent the summer a few weeks in Paris with I'm pretty sure Columbia-led program, because she completed Art Hum and Music Hum, which are two core requirements, while in Paris, which is a very different experience than doing it here. But she absolutely loved it, and it didn't take away from her semesters at school. So that's another option that I totally didn't know before coming to college, that at least here, it's offered that you can also study abroad during your summers.
I was wondering if West College students do gap years to Israel and how those credits are handled, or if it involves in university study of them.
Yeah, so typically we see roughly a quarter-ish of each incoming class is coming in off a gap year, going off of a gap year. This incoming class is a little larger. There's 12 students coming off of a gap year this year. Most of the students who take gap years are typically in Israel, though we've had students in the past who have done other things. Last year we had a student who did a full year at sea, which was really cool. And then we've had students who have done internships in the States throughout their gap year. So they're really doing a lot of things. The way that it works in terms of transfer credit, and this is a conversation that I will have with your student about any pre-college credits that they're bringing in, for any gap year or dual enrollment-esque type courses, those credits must come from an accredited college or university. So for a lot of gap year programs, they do partner with either institutions in Israel or institutions here in the States, and then students get a college transcript from that place. They're able to send that transcript to us, and then we can evaluate that for credit. The exception is most yeshiva or seminary programs. Those are typically not accredited by a traditional accrediting body, and that means that we cannot bring in formal credit from those programs. However, if you are spending a year in those programs, obviously you're immersed in language, you're immersed in text. Your Hebrew will likely skyrocket. Most students who are in those types of programs are traditionally exempt from the traditional Hebrew sequence, so they're really only taking that one advanced Hebrew literature type course. And they're not starting from scratch when it comes to our text courses. So we're not asking a gap year student who spent a year in yeshiva to sit in a Talmud Text 1 class. They're likely starting probably at advanced Talmud, and a lot of them will even jump into even higher courses right off the bat. So even in those cases, those students are still getting some semblance of moving forward, even if it's not from the numbers side of the credits that they're getting. But other gap year, dual enrollment, and AP and IB credits, we can bring in a maximum of 15 to the JTS side. AP and IB credits are also counted separately on the Columbia or Barnard side. For the JTS side, we use Barnard's AP and IB policies. I know this is all going right over your head, and it's okay. We'll cover this with your student again. But we use Barnard's AP and IB policies. So if you want to see what credits your student may get, if you just Google Barnard AP policy. It'll be the first thing that pops up. So you could see the full list of credits. Obviously, if your student is a double degree student, that's also what Barnard's using to figure out what credits. If your student is a joint program student, you also have to Google Columbia GS AP policy to see what they may get on the Columbia side.
Can transfer credits apply towards the requirements for the major?
Yes, sometimes. In certain majors, there are up to two classes that can be fulfilled from another place. That's definitely pending approval. So our Jewish ethics major that Arya is in allows for two classes, 6 credits, to come in from Columbia. So philosophical ethics, which is meant to be, for us it's meant to be secular. They take a lot of Jewish ethics courses here as part of the major, but that class specifically we're looking to come from Columbia or Barnard. Once they're declared as a major, the ethics major advisor will go through that with them and verify what might count or not count. If I have a sophomore who comes in and says, I think I want to study ethics, I'm going to take these classes at Barnard or Columbia, will they count? Sometimes I'll direct them to the major advisor, even if they're not for sure a major, just so that we're making sure that we are having that conversation early. In the Jewish history major, sometimes they'll pull in an elective credit from Columbia or Barnard. There's actually in the Talmud major also, they have a cognate requirement that's like history of that time period, and so sometimes that is taken at Columbia or Barnard. So in a lot of the majors, up to 2 classes can come in, but case by case.
What about external transfer credits?
It happens less often. Somebody who is on like an accredited university's gap year program, is that what you're referring to, or a study abroad?
Summer coursework, not on site.
Yeah, so it's all going to need to, would need to be approved. So if I have a student who tells me, I think I want to study abroad, I'm planning to spend time in Israel, I'll say, figure out what classes you might want to take and send me the syllabus, and if I know the answer, I'll sign off on it, we'll discuss it together. Sometimes it goes to the major advisor, so there's no class like 100% of the time it's coming in, but if folks are studying abroad, I have them bring any syllabi to me as early as they can so that they're not taking a class and then wondering, did it count, did it not count?
So it's subject to the same 2 classes?
Yes, it's for the major, yes.
And it's also something that the reason that none of those external credits also sort of just are a flat coming in is because we also want to make sure that we're adjusting for the number piece of that to ensure that students are always reaching the in-house credit requirements on both sides, because that can be where it gets tricky with transfer credit. Yes?
I feel like I'm just missing just some basic numbers. How many students are at List College? And how many are like then at Barnard and Columbia? Because I feel like we keep talking about it's really small, but like I have actually no concept.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. So each incoming class is roughly 40 to 45 students. The overall student body right now, I think we're at 152. Last time that I saw an enrollment. So of that, usually each double degree class is around 8 to maybe 10 students. It seems like this incoming class will be slightly larger, so closer to 10. So typically it's about 75% of students, roughly, in the joint program, 25% in the double degree, which sort of makes sense on math. We're about 50-50 male, female, so half of the women in double degree, half in joint. Yes?
I was just wondering about academic, in addition to advisors, academic supports for what's available?
Do you want to?
I think it was mentioned in the last panel, but I really like to talk about the Academic Resource Center. That's for GS. I'm sure Barnard has an equivalent, but pretty much I studied STEM and I took general chemistry my first year, which I am not good at chemistry, but I went to the Academic Resource Center twice a week and essentially got free tutoring. It was individualized, no one else showed up, just me. So I got free tutoring and passed general chemistry solely because of the Academic Resource Center tutor. And I know a lot of classes also will give different tutoring opportunities if students are looking for it, depending on what class they're in. So I think the Academic Resource Center is something that I really like to push specifically for GS, and I'm sure Barnard has an equal equivalent.
Yes, they do. There's also the writing centers on both campuses, which are especially helpful and are a lot of times required during first-year writing and university writing. So that's another support on the Columbia Barnard side. On the JTS side, because the classes are so small, a lot of times that sort of tutoring, quote unquote, comes with just having office hours with your faculty members at JTS. In terms of formal tutoring, that mostly happens through Hebrew. So Hebrew has both Hebrew on demand and more formalized Hebrew tutoring. Hebrew on demand is basically where you could just go, there's a Hebrew faculty member that's there every week, and you could just stop in and pop in, and that's for more quick questions. And then for students who need more ongoing care, they'll work with the head of the Hebrew department to set up a more formalized tutoring schedule so that they're able to get that support. In addition to that, for anybody in the room who has a student who currently has an IEP or a 504 plan, we work very closely with ODS, the Office of Disability Services at Columbia, and CARDS, the Center for Accommodations, Resources, and now it's going right out of my head, at Barnard. Their disability services office. And we work closely with them, so students will submit all of their documentation to register formally through ODS or CARDS. They'll receive an accommodations letter from them. They'll send that accommodations letter to their advisor here, and we'll provide them with a JTS accommodations letter as well. The biggest difference between the high school experience and the college experience when it comes to students with disabilities is that your student will get this accommodations letter, but it is not built in the same way. So it is up to your student whether or not they wish to disclose that information to the faculty members and take advantage of those accommodations. So we have conversations with students who have those accommodation letters and let them know that they don't have to disclose, but we always encourage them to for the classes, especially when they'll need those accommodations, things like Hebrew. The Hebrew department especially works really closely with students with disabilities, so to help them be successful in that area, and have specialists who are trained to work with students with dyslexia or other learning-based, language-based learning differences. So that is definitely another academic resource across both campuses. Yes, over here.
One of the students in the prior panel mentioned about wanting to be strategic in choosing classes to optimize getting credit in each school. Are students in the dual degree program typically graduating in 4 years without taking summer classes? Is that the norm?
I'm happy to. I mean, yes, that would be the short answer. I mean, they're in a lot of conversation both with us and then the deans at Columbia Barnard to make sure that's happening. We have students who come in for advising meetings that are the required once a semester in order to register for their classes for the following semester. And we have students who meet with us once a month because they want to make sure that they're on track and they're understanding things the way we're understanding things. And everyone kind of goes through the process of choosing their classes differently, but it's certainly possible to go through the program. There are several things that will double count at both places. For example, the Columbia core requires a language. Their Hebrew counts automatically. One of the humanities requirements comes from Great Books, which also happens automatically. There are 2 social science requirements. Both of those can come from history classes at JTS also automatically. And then there are even 2 more, so up to 6 of the classes from the core. I don't know the specific names of all of the classes in the Barnard's core program, and so I don't want to say them incorrectly. We have all of them written down, and we're very careful about telling students what we know and what we don't know, and want them to make sure on the Columbia Barnard side that they're being advised correctly and that they're counting things the right way. So we are always happy to talk to your students about that as they go through the program, but yes, it happens most of the time.
So this kind of dovetails to that question. How does prioritization for registration and coursework go? And are the GS students, in terms of like vis-a-vis the Columbia College student, how does that work?
This is one of my favorite things to share. We as joint program students, and this is specifically on the GS end, I'm pretty sure it works similarly for the Barnard end.
It does.
Okay, great. We have priority over Columbia College seniors to select our classes, which is one of the greatest assets of this program. So I get to tell my friends that are seniors that I get to register before them at all times. So that's one thing. And then, oh my God, I just blanked out on what I was gonna say. we also have the peer advisors that are working to make sure that we're really registered well, and we kind of sit with them. We have those academic advising hours from the peers that sit and we go through it. So yeah, we have our registration time first, and they kind of overlap with our JTS registration time, so we're kind of getting everything done across the board at one period of time.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add to that is starting your second semester here, you will never not get into a class because of your registration time, because you're a JTS student, which is huge because it means you can take classes that would otherwise be full to you until that most people can't take till their senior year. So you really have a lot more flexibility in devising your schedule and what classes you want to take.
I just had a quick question. In the previous panel, somebody was saying they picked their courses if they were doing semester JTS and then they did semester Columbia. So is that normally how it works? Is that you're specifically focusing on one school versus another? And if not, how do you make sure you get to each campus within timeline?
I was just gonna say, I think maybe it was like misspoken in the words. I think what she meant was, depending on the situation of the semester, sometimes you like lean heavy on one school or the other, but you're always enrolled in both schools at the same time. Just like during the Jewish holidays, sometimes you like to pick the JTS classes more than the Columbia classes, so you don't have to worry about Jewish holidays and absences and stuff like that. So you're always enrolled in both. When it comes to like getting from campus to campus, one thing that if you've been on a tour before, hopefully someone's pointed out, or you'll see it today, Columbia and Barnard's campuses actually start at 120th Street. So that's only 2 blocks from here. So we do have the like JTS connection, as we call it, where we go up through one of the buildings that brings us to Columbia's campus. So you're really only 2 blocks away from most classrooms. We also have, I like to do sometimes like my JTS day, where I like keep my JTS classes on a Monday, Wednesday, and I keep my Columbia classes on a Tuesday, Thursday. Also, like, I like to explain to maybe parents who don't have college students, your students aren't going to be in classes from like 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day at one campus, or like running back and forth. It's like you have a 10:10 class, and maybe you have a 2 p.m. class, and there's a break for lunch. So you have the ability to move around. If you have back-to-back classes across the campus, you just learn to hustle. You grab a granola bar, you pick up your pace, and you're fine.
Yes.
Can you just speak a little bit about the experience of the students that have no knowledge of Hebrew language, and how does that affect?
You started foundation.
Okay. So typically, that's actually rare. So about a third of each incoming class, at least, is usually in Foundations of Hebrew, so it's a pretty normal experience. For students, for those of you not, it's usually about a third in Foundations, a third somewhere in the middle, and then a third in that last semester or exempt. Those are rough numbers. They change class to class. We're only 40 students. Obviously, it varies a lot year to year. For those students in Foundations of Hebrew, they're looking at a 5-semester sequence. So basically, students will take Hebrew every semester that they're on campus until they are complete with the sequence. So the experience really varies from student to student. There are some students that I meet with that are in those earlier semesters where it's 6 credits, and it's the easiest course that they take their entire time. They're just going through the sequence. There are some that Hebrew is the most challenging thing that they will take for their 4 years on campus, and that's why we have all those added support resources through the Hebrew department. Some students, especially if they're in that Foundations, may elect to take Hebrew over the summer in between their first and second year to basically make it a 2-year rather than going into junior year. I've had that conversation with a few students this year who are looking to do it. One of the perks of that is that third semester is the last 6-credit semester, so that it allows them to go into sophomore year, sort of freeing up a little bit of space in their schedule if they choose to do that. Obviously, it is not required or needed in order to graduate on time. It's really just more a preference for students. Those summer Hebrew courses are traditionally online, at least for the past few years, so it's also a good way you could do it from anywhere. So that is an option for students who want to sort of accelerate if they are starting in that first semester. But otherwise, they're in that for their first 5 semesters on campus.
I will add that I started, even though I went to Hebrew school, I started at, I used to call it Zebrew, which didn't make sense. It should really be Abrew, but. So I started with, let's say, 0 Hebrew here. I did it in 4 years. I did do summer semester to make my way through it. Used to be more credits, so that was an achievement. But I did the whole sequence, and you know, there's kind of a camaraderie that builds, like a side benefit of like we're in it together, and we made it. It can be done.
What's the impact on credits? That you have to take more credits, or it just takes away some of the others left? But how does that?
It makes it, if we have a general elective requirement of 21 credits, taking all of that Hebrew takes care of that. It fills it in. So really, if you're all 21 credits. So if you're coming in with a lot of Hebrew, you'll fill out that requirement just by virtue of taking the sequence. And on the other end, if you're coming in with, you know, essentially exempt, you take one course, that's when we find different ways to fill out those 21 credits. As I said before, either through coursework or other transfer credits, etc. But it's not an added burden of extra credits. It just fills in exactly what it needs to. Those 21 credits of general electives are met by your Hebrew requirement.
But if there's a piece that the child is coming in through, then that may be out additional electives, even though they.
If you fulfill your 21 credit requirement through your Hebrew, I think that the AP credit is just extra icing on the cake. It won't be necessary to bolster our credit count.
We can keep talking also after this.
Yes, yeah. So we're heading down, and we're going to take this last question, and then we'll head down to lunch, and all of us will be there so we can continue individual conversations. Yeah.
Thanks. So I think it was mentioned that for the major 8 of the 10 courses will be on the GTS campus. For the electives, if someone is, placing out as part of the Hebrew credit, what percentage of those 21 credits can be taken at Columbia or Barnard rather than at GTS?
So 15 credits can come from an overage. It's not automatic. So this is slightly different. So like transfer credit outside, yes, we're just going to evaluate and it can go towards those elective credits. Same thing with APIB. The Columbia credits, the caveat is that they have to have hit 60 credits already on the Columbia or Barnard side. So all students bring in an overage because at Columbia you have to take 64 minimum, at Barnard 62 minimum. So there's always an overage of some kind. But if a student takes 75 or more credits on the Columbia or Barnard side, we can maximize that 15 credit overage from the Columbia or Barnard side.
I can say for context, I tested out of Hebrew, so I only took one semester, so I have like all these electives to fill. I have 10 AP credits that are recognized here. It's not the same at Columbia for me. So out of the 21, 10 are covered by my APs, and then I have to fill these like 11 other credits with my overage. So right now I'm hitting like a 66 credit overage. So I'm looking for some electives that I want to take either on the JTS end or on the Columbia end that are just things that interest me to help me get to that 21 number. So it doesn't work that way for every student, depending on what Hebrew we're starting with or how many APs you're coming in with or IBs or other things. But for me, like right now, as I enter my senior year, I'm looking for electives to take as well.
Because your students are meeting with us at least once per semester, like I said, often more times, we're having these conversations periodically. So it's very rare that we get to a student and they're surprised by something they learn in their junior or senior year. These things are caught early on so long as we're able to communicate easily with your students. So remind them to come for their advising appointments. But they can't register for classes unless they do at JTS. So that's mostly a great thing. Some people like it less. But we like it because we get to see everyone like in real life at least once a semester, like I said, if not many more times. So it's not going to be a surprise.
Okay, so your students are already downstairs. Madison just gave me the look. They're like, the students are looking for you all. So we're gonna head downstairs back to the atrium. So the staircase right here or the main elevators will both take you downstairs.